Hey guys, and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today I wanted to take a look at that CitizenCon demo, the Procedural Planets version 2 demo that had been re-recorded and re-uploaded in its press kind of version. This isn't the live streamed demo, this is a re-recorded version in 60 frames per second at a high resolution. So, I just wanted to talk about some of the tech behind it and that sort of stuff. We can see here Port Olisar, literally copy and pasted in, I believe, for the demo, just to show that that is Port Olisar, that is that large station that you spawn in, and the scale of the planet. This is Layer 3. It might not exist exactly in this state in the verse when it's finally put into the game, but here we are seeing the tech that we will have in Alpha 3.0, which is pretty cool, pretty exciting. We should have that by Christmas as well. This is various biomes on a planet as well. You won't have just it's unlikely you'll have just a desert planet or an ocean planet, but you'll have planets with various biomes. We can see tundra here, we saw an ocean, we can see savanna, that sort of stuff. Expect jungle planets, plains, lots of different things. Entire planets covered in cities, the sort of stuff we can see there as well. In the top right, you can see that planet or moon in Crusader behind Korea. Quite often we can see like a plainsy savanna here with some trees. Now at the moment you can see trees popping in and out. They are aware of that issue. This isn't up to spec for them. They were very much in the opinion it's going to be a load better by the time it gets into our hands in 3.0. So hopefully they'll sort out some of the levels of detail stuff with the trees. Obviously we don't want them popping in and out. We see the gas giant Crusader up there on the top left, but just the vast array of terrain that's different compared to what we had in the original 3.0 demo from Gamescom is quite staggering. There we just had a single texture over some various height maps and stuff. This is a variety of height maps, different differentiation. They've pulled out mountains. Oh, we're just about to pass a dude, I think. Oh, is that in a minute? That's in a minute. No, it's now. It's now. He says, hello, CitizenCon. And that flag that you just saw there is actually wind-driven in-game. That's not an animation for the flag. It's driven as simulation. Everything here is full simulation. The weather systems, the clouds, the sun's an actual sun in the center of the solar system that the planet rotates and revolves around. So night and day cycles. Again, they're simulated in-game. They're not faked. The skybox, simulated. All that planet that you can see there, the Port Olisar we passed, you can see them if they're close enough to be seen. And the horizon is a real horizon, effectively. It's not faked. That's created by the mountains in the distance. You can see stars and other systems in the sky. I think this is absolutely fantastic. Star Citizen here has created its own very much galaxy simulator now, where the Star Engine could be used to port into lots of different games. Now we're focusing on a Constellation Aquila. So this is an exploration variant of the Constellation that will be in our hands very soon, flyable. It does come with some extras and bits and bobs. But the idea here is to show that a ship can fly from orbit down to a planet, and that there is planetary exploration for them to do. There might not necessarily be a specific mission that this guy was on, and this player model is from People to Planet. He was the gentleman from that, so you can see it's scaled down slightly, I suppose, for this demo. Levels of detail aren't as good as in People to Planet, in my opinion, for that player model. So he's detected a distress beacon, which he wants to go over to investigate. But there are various mechanics in game which will try and push you to investigate on foot. Obviously, you could just fly around the planet on your spaceship and land next to the distress beacon and do that sort of stuff. But there is a mechanic in place, as you can see here. It says it's not safe, so there's going to be environmental hazards that prevent you from landing. So that could be acid storms, weather systems, EMPs, technology. They could put some sort of interdiction device down there. There will be some reasons for certain areas to prevent you landing your ship directly next to them, and to kind of ferry you to explore on foot. And that's what's happening here. He'll have to find another landing site that's nearby, and then go to that distress signal on foot or by vehicle, or by dragonfly or whatever. So he's found another location that he can park safe, A safe landing zone found. I'm not sure if it's going to do exactly this. This is very much a scripted demo, so it's obviously scripted in some ways, but obviously open in others. So it shows off the gameplay mechanics, but in a very confined environment. We're not entirely sure if this server was connected to any form of network, but I'm assuming everything was pretty enclosed, closed off. It's got a relatively good frame rate. You notice when he gets to structures and when he's in his ship, it's a lot lower than when it's rendering just large areas away from these containers. So this prefab is literally just plopped in there, this little base. They can make vastly huge detailed terrain and planets. We'll talk about procedural planets again in a second, but they can make these sort of terrain pieces really easy. They make them out of game effectively, and then just they can copy and paste them in, and then edit little bits on them to make them all look unique, and change shaders, change textures, that sort of stuff. Place some cargo boxes around to make each of these structures look different from the last one that you possibly saw. So this area could have been created in literally a few minutes, potentially. For allowing him to land here. But the procedural planet system in general, the planets, the spheres, they're created pretty quick. They'll tell the editor what kind of biomes and stuff they want on the planet, and then that will create it. And before we get back to that, actually, what he's doing here at the moment is putting on some armor. So they don't want you to be able to sit in a chair in your ship in full heavy armor or something. They want that to be restricted in some way, so that you have to go and put your EVA suit on. You have to go and put your armor on and grab all your equipment before you leave a ship. Otherwise, you could just have a full inventory of stuff sitting in your seat. And although that's obviously easier to do, just having that full inventory sitting in your seat, it's not as realistic, and they want that kind of immersive system. You see, it's actually pretty detailed, the player model here. But yeah, the planets in general, they're procedurally generated, and the kind of slightly kind of told what to do with them, like generate these biomes, generate all that sort of stuff. Then the planet will be height mapped and stuff, so literally artists will grab stuff and go, I want some mountains here, I want an ocean here, and then they'll paint on the biomes. They go, this area is going to be Arctic tundra, and they can kind of have a more hand sculpt kind of detailed look at the planets and make them do exactly what they want. They can even paint on trees. They can go down to very small levels, like with this structure they plonked in here. They could place individual boxes and that sort of stuff. So although all planets are going to start off procedurally generated, pretty just like bam, that's what the planets look like when it starts, then the artists are going to get down in there and sculpt them so that they're a really handcrafted experience. And this is going to propagate to wildlife and stuff as well. You're not going to see procedurally generated wildlife. You might see it procedurally generated where they appear, but they're going to actually create that wildlife. They're going to be hand sculpted. We can see here the Ursa rover. So this is one of the mechanics that's going to be used to explore planets. Obviously, a little rover that goes around, and it comes with the Aquila, and he's going to literally just drive around in it. Now, you can see the flags there. The wind procedurally drives the way the cloth moves, which is pretty cool. They could have faked that. They could have just had an animation. And the Ursa rover here, it's physics driven as well. There's pressure applied to the wheels. The two center wheels are driving it. They've talked about being able to have lots and lots of wheels as well. I think the CryEngine limit was 16, but I think with the Star Engine they could technically have as many wheels as they want. And it's applying pressure to the ground. And we can see here the difference between the terrain from the original Gamescom demo compared to the new CitizenCon demo. There's parallax mapping going on. There's a lot of detail on the textures. It looks like it's actually got depth to them, and the textures are generally just a much higher quality. And there's lots and lots more geometry going on. In fact, if you look at that, that's just levels of detail that have made that terrain. That terrain is there and exists, and it's the levels of detail that allow it to be rendered at over 60 frames per second at this very early stage. And you've got to remember that there are no drivers currently written for by AMD or Nvidia for Star Citizen. Obviously, when the game gets closer to release, or maybe when it's released, there will be much more efficient drivers driving the game. Occasionally, you see little flickers as well. So it was like the entire planet disappears for a brief second. That's called Z fighting, and that's a common issue. I used to have that all the time with Skyrim, but the devs are aware that it happens with this, and they will be fixing it, hopefully. So you see a little flicker there. Z fighting. They should be fixing it soon, hopefully. It's really annoying. It happens in lots of games. hopefully as well with new drivers and stuff like that, the game will just run a lot more efficient. Now, the idea here is that I believe it's the entire size of a Skyrim map, or Skyrim in general, is between the building we just saw, where he landed, and where the distress beacon is. And he's driving there on a buggy, just having a look around the terrain and the scenery, and this massively vast planet, which is incredibly highly detailed. And I just love the way that the Ursa Rover actually looks at it, how it drives. It's got this spring IK system in the wheels. I'm not a massive fan of its actual suspension because I think it looks too springy, but there's a rig and a system all set behind that to apply physics, to apply weight and that sort of stuff. And we can see that some of the volumetric smoke there. One of the things that they did talk about is that the smoke's nowhere near the quality they want yet, and I actually think smoke is one of the best looking things in the game at the moment. The shadows are pretty good as well, but again, everything here is some of the first iterations of all this tech. It's going to get so much more polished before game release, but even so much more polished before it gets into our hands by hopefully Christmas with that 3.0 alpha demo. Now we spotted some stuff around here. I think it's a broken down cutlass. And we can see some of the kind of wrecked ships that will appear on planets. These are going to be more like set pieces, stuff they plop in with the item container system. I believe the item container system is something that lowers the frame rate, but it's just prefabs basically. And you see when he actually gets closer to it, it actually lowers the frame rate. They're high detailed kind of quality set pieces that they can plop in, they can move around, they can edit to make look different, but it's pretty modular. You can see there, that's where he originally landed, whereas a Constellation Aquila still is. And it's just crazy just how vast and large the world is. We can see that apparently the sky's blue in this as well, because they've scattered the light and stuff as well to make it look blue. It's all simulated. I think that's just absolutely crazy. So this Cutlass is probably here because it didn't adhere to the environmental hazard warning earlier. I think that's the idea. So now he's pretty close to the distress beacon. And he's going to go and travel a bit closer to it. And just seeing, knowing that you could travel to that moon, seeing Port Olisar in the top left there, knowing that it's actually there in the sky and you could see the rings moving, knowing that a ship could pass you at any second, that's an actual player, I think that's a great thing. Nothing's really been on the same sort of scale as this and existed in the same universe. One of the other things we can see here is obviously that it's for the demo, but there will be cool little lore pieces on planets, cool little clues to missions and cool stuff to find. So he's just discovered a javelin plaque here, describing the ship that might appear later in the demo. It's like a little clue. See, again, showing where the Constellation and that little facility is, how far they've travelled already. So he's going to go over here and he's going to read Aphelios Horizon, retag, Javelin class. So obviously the Javelin Destroyer is quite a big capital ship. We have in the verse that people could actually purchase. And later on in the demo we'll see another wreck one. And the idea is that planets aren't just going to be desert planets or anything like that. We did see some of the other biomes earlier. There will be foliage. There will be flora, fauna. There will be lots of little stuff to discover. It's not going to be huge, vast, empty areas. There's going to be bits and bobs to discover. There's going to be kind of procedurally generated or systemically driven kind of things that will be happening. That could be NPC AI running around, pirates or sand nomads or wildlife. And this is a good example of that. So some sand nomads here, some actual AI are going to ambush the vehicle. They've got their own little language. I'm not sure if they're human or not. I think they're human. They're going to ambush the Ursa Rover here. Now obviously this is relatively scripted, even down to the cameras being scripted. But this could happen just when you're exploring a planet is the idea eventually in the game. When it appears like open and enter seat, that's the inner thought system. That's replacing the use and press FTU system. I'm pretty sure, you can see his health is, he's taken some head damage there. But I'm pretty sure he's actually invincible in this. All that cloth, all these sand nomads and all that sort of stuff, you can see they're covered in cloth, they're ready for the desert. They were built basically for this demo, I believe. Although they probably had plans to do some of these drifters before. Very simple killing of them. They're not particularly smart AI yet. And you can hear in the background as well, that's music that's playing is dynamically driven. So it knows he's in combat, it knows he's taken hits, it knows he's killed stuff, and it kind of bases the music on what is happening to him. And now that the combat's kind of ended, it's slowly building downwards, slowly going down. But he's lost his Rover there. Well, maybe not lost, but it's damaged and he'd have to repair it to get it back on his feet. There's one of its wheels, I think, wheeling past. You can see Zed fighting again there, that flickering. Obviously, that would be quite annoying if that happened when you were playing yourself. But he's found the distress beacon. Looks like a little escape pod. Again, you can see Port Olisar up there. You can see planets. You can see mountains. You can see little bits of wreckage and a little bit of foliage and that sort of stuff. So he's found that distress beacon and he can go over there and interact with it. And the idea here is that he's turning this on to find the other escape pods, which might lead him to something else. Hopefully, well, they've said that missions will have multiple kind of ways to complete and there might be other ways to find stuff. Now, I'm hoping this sort of mission is just going to be something that you can just find on a planet. You'll be like, oh, an escape pod, or a distress signal, or something like that. You can scan down stuff and you can find stuff. Find these little cool little sub-missions. That's what you kind of want when you're exploring. Obviously, the Sand Nomads, those guys that he's just killed, and this is one of their little outposts. You can see dragonflies here as well. Now, there are going to be, I believe, multiple skins for ships in the game. I'm not sure how custom they're going to have the system, but hopefully there's going to be a vast array of different skins for every different ship, at the very least. They might want to go down the super custom route where you can do your own skins and your own paint jobs and stuff, but I don't really mind about that. I'm sure some people desperately want to customize the interior and exterior of their ship. As long as we can move stuff around our ships, as long as we have a choice of skins, like for this dragonfly. This dragonfly hasn't gone on sale. There's skin for it anyway. The dragonfly yellow and the dragonfly black went on sale. See, now he's just driving around, looking at some different flora. You see that tree is pretty similar. I think it is not just a copy-paste job, but it's quite I think there's a lot of similar trees at the moment. But that stuff will get a lot more variety in the future. Just knowing that most of this planet was procedurally generated and then that artist's touch has gone in there. And there's lots of blending that goes on between different biomes when they meet as well. And the engine that they've got at the moment, where like a tundra biome would meet a desert biome, it kind of blends it naturally. Occasionally they have to get artists in and involved in that kind of finalised process. If it doesn't look perfect, where like trees and wildlife might be going into the wrong biome or whatever and look weird. But the idea is that they can kind of lightly paint on biomes and just say this area is going to be forest, this area is going to be tundra, this area is going to be desert. And the system knows what to do, and they can make these huge, vast terrain pieces with that. You can see in the distance there a sandstorm with lightning or some form of static discharge going on in it. And we'll come to that again in a minute. Also, you can see some crystals around that lake as well. That's going to be a harvestable resource in the game. Something that you might want to be searching for, not just in a prospector. I'm assuming we'll have to mine them by hand as well, though that is an assumption. So he's found another escape pod here. He was led there by the last one. And the idea here is it's like almost a treasure hunt-esque mission. You go, oh, this is taking me here, this is taking me here, this is taking me here. You see lots of little insects floating around as well. Turn the power on here. And he's going to find a much larger prize now. Scanning the local area. See the last one behind him. And you can see that you can see 5 more escape pods in the nearby facility. So that, spoilers, is leading on to a larger ship, which we will see properly in a second. But we can see some crystals here. As I said, harvestable resource. But we don't need to know about that at the moment, apparently. You see Port Olisar there, you can actually see the rings moving. It's literally, that is Port Olisar that they've either copy and pasted into the sky, or they created this planet around what we already had of the Stanton system. And looking at the fact that it's Crusader over there, I think, in the sky, I think it's probably a copy and paste. They've created this planet in the Stanton system in the meantime. So this is Layer 3. This would be in the Layer system once the Layer system is done. And we're going to have to wait until Alpha 4.0 to have other systems that we can travel to. In the meantime, anything that they want to put in other systems will be brought into the Stanton system, into the mini persistent universe that we have at the moment, like temporary placing there. We can see when they move their hands and stuff like that, when they move the controls, there'll be a correspondent movement of the character model on those controls. The first and third person animations for everything are unified, meaning if you're pointing your gun at someone, that's where you're pointing your gun, in first person and in third person. You could effectively trace the bullets of where they'd come from and where they'd go. Where did they come from? Cut an eye, Joe. No, let's not break into song during a video. The shadows and the light are going to get a lot more polish and work as well at the moment. You can see sometimes it looks a bit weird with the shadows. Now, obviously, that's being generated mostly by the actual star. And they have edited the CryEngine by like 50% at the moment. It's now called the Star Engine, kind of officially, or at least semi-officially. You can see a piece of ship wreckage, probably from that Javelin spoilers that we'll see in a second. That inner thought system coming up again. So if there were multiple options for something, he'd have to choose like open ship door, close ship door, lock ship door. We can see a piece of wildlife here. Chris put this worm in quite last minute. He went, I want a worm. And I like the idea that this has clearly been influenced by so many different kind of sci-fi things. Star Wars, a little bit of Star Trek, Dune there as well with the sandworm. And you can see a lot of influences. I'm hoping that we see a lot more. Even if they're less blatant than just Easter eggs. But now he's going for the black box of that Orpheus Horizon, which was the plaque of the Javelin Destroyer that we saw earlier. And unfortunately in this demo, the black box didn't work properly, but we'll come to that in a minute. You can see there are going to be large kind of open areas as well in the verse, and that's what the procedural planets allow them to do. It allows you to travel like this. Now, you could travel on foot. Obviously, it'd be much more beneficial to have an Ursa Rover or a Dragonfly or something to be able to explore these planets with. And you'll be able to get all of these ships, you'll be able to get all of these vehicles in-game. And we saw how easy it was for him to find a Dragonfly. Now, we're not sure how easy it will be actually in-game, but possibly that easy. Possibly just, I found a Dragonfly, cool. And now he's approaching that wreck of the Javelin. Now, this could be placed on any planet, this kind of wreck, and they could make it look like it had been ravaged by whatever they wanted it to be. So if it was an ice biome, they could change the shaders, they could change the placement of the individual broken blocks to make it look like it had been there for however long they wanted, frozen, battered by that particular type of weather system. Here, obviously, it's sand. See here, they've turned it into some kind of fort. And one of the other things that they want is that with these kind of missions, you could have heavy resistance one time you go there. You could go there and it'd be like almost completely empty or surrounded by sandworms or other wildlife. There could be a battle going on there already between two factions, that sort of stuff. They want it to be a bit different every time, not necessarily the same. Every time you go to explore somewhere, they want that to be a unique experience. Obviously, this demo would play out pretty much the same every time, and that's why it's scripted. It's scripted like that. But I love the weather system moving in here, and that sandstorm. You can see that around the sandstorm now, even, you can start to see the build-up of that. You can see the sand blowing. You see it's got a bit more intense. I'm surprised there's no dynamic music system, because he's like getting towards the storm, but I suppose you wouldn't be able to hear the cool lightning and that sort of stuff as well. And I'm not really one for dynamic music or music in general in games. I normally turn that off, but I do love the music of Pedro, and I am really enjoying what they've done with that music system here, and I want to see how it evolves. It might get really, really, really good. Again, a little bit more flicker from Z fighting, which is annoying, but as I said earlier, will hopefully get fixed. You can see that it's been slightly reinforced. This is like more of a base as a habitat. Now, ships crashed on planets are going to kind of be placed there. If your ship crashes on a planet, it will just explode. Is the most likely thing at the moment. You might be able to salvage some wreckage or whatever if it exploded in orbit. Whatever, people will come salvage with reclaimers and that sort of stuff. But it's not going to become a wreck on a planet as far as we're aware currently. I'm sure they want to do that at some point. Also, they talked about melee and takedowns and stuff, so obviously if you get close enough to an enemy from behind, you'll be able to do takedown with the inner thought system. They have been talking about doing proper melee and stuff like that as well now, which is pretty cool. Now, this is a rickety bridge leading up to the bridge of the ship. Obviously, that weather system is coming in, so he has to get inside. And the idea is that if he didn't get inside, that weather system could have damaged him, could have killed him. If he wasn't wearing the white EVA gear or the right armour. So he's come and sought refuge inside of that bridge of the Javelin. And you can see it's been ravaged by sand, effectively, by the desert. And they are talking about having spoilers again for Squadron 42. Javelin at the beginning of Squadron 42, I think. And that's just an assumption. I'm pretty sure they've talked about that in the past, though. That might crash onto a planet. And this could be that Javelin that crashes. And you hear the black box there, giving off her beacon. Though I'm sure if it was actually giving off that bleepy sound, the sand nomads that lived in here would have gone mad. See little generators there. And that's where the black box would have been. But in this demo, it didn't actually work, apparently. Sand nomad here, which you can murder. Again, I would have silently murdered him. He's killing this guy as well. And it's just to show that you can pick up loot from them on the floor. So now he's got that. Got that assault rifle. Looks more like an SMG to me. I think it's actually called an assault rifle. And you see there's no black box there. There's supposed to be a black box there that could interact with. I'm not sure if it would tell him some stuff or whatever. But the idea is that you'd be able to find out some lore of that area. You'd be able to find out some cool stuff. You might get a reward for finding it. There's loads of stuff that could happen. So voice blogs, something else that might lead you to another mission. I doubt you'll be able to salvage these wrecks as well that are on planets in the same way that you'd be able to salvage stuff that's in space and player ships and other set pieces that are in space for specifically salvage, but you will be able to scavenge them. You'll be able to find stuff like the black box. You'll be able to find weapon caches. You'll be able to find, oh, look, there's a component here that's worth a lot of money. It's kind of placed there like loot rather than nom nom nom. I'm munching bits of it with my reclaimer or ripping bits off with repair tools. I believe that's the intention anyway. And this is just like one of the, I think the engine pods of the Javelin. The player has cunningly decided to go through. And you can see that the cool light shafts, god rays, I think they used to be called. And the lighting in Star Citizen and the CryEngine, or the Star Engine now, is absolutely beautiful. And it's only going to get better. And that's basically what I wanted to show you with this demo and talk through. I love the idea of the Star Engine. I love the idea of what Star Citizen's doing. These huge, vast, massive areas which they can do. It's just insane. You see that even on planets, that the dragonflies have their shields as well, which is going to be pretty good, because we saw that the Urza Rover didn't look like it did have a shield. So I'm liking the idea of the dragonflies more now, and they could have a person on the back facing the other direction on the dragonfly as well. It's a 2-passenger ship. And we can see here some of the wildlife getting angry at the sad nomads. The spice must flow. Very, 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 very Dune-esque. Probably not best to shoot the sandworm. Obviously that's scripted. That thing didn't have any form of AI to my knowledge, other than just being a big scripted cool thing. And it's nice to know that they're going to have very sculpted animals, flora, fauna, and all that sort of stuff. That Javelin there, pretty big, but not nearly as big when we zoom out here to see the planet in all its glory. And that's just basically what I wanted to talk about with the Procedural Planets version 2 demo. Procedural Planets, not so procedural anymore. We're using that word kind of incorrectly to describe the system they're using for their planets, which is very hand-sculpt now, artist-sculpt. And they're going to have those 110 systems in at some point, a good chunk on release, so expect like 60 or 70 on release. But with 3.0, that hopefully we're getting by Christmas 2016, we'll have that full Stanton system in there, at least with all of the procedural bodies in, even astral bodies rather than procedural bodies, using procedural wrong. Hopefully all of them in, even if they're just roughed in. And Star Citizen's going to be a great game. Anyway, guys, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I've been Boredgamer. That was the CitizenCon demo. You take care, and I'll see you in the verse.